Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco Dre Show, everybody. It is Wednesday, July 30th. Thanks for tuning in and staying up to date on all the groundbreaking news across the country, across the globe, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please be sure to like, follow, and share the show with others to get this information out. I always appreciate when you do things like that. It helps out the show, and it helps get the truth out, which is the most important thing. Let's get ready now for the best hour radio has to offer. I saw this backlash yesterday. And this is so ridiculous that this is even happening. But it makes sense, based on the idiocy of the left in this country. All of these liberal activists are now slamming this actress, Syndey Sweeney, over this new American Eagle ad, selling jeans, of course, and the idea that it's featuring a blonde, white-haired woman, and now they're accusing her of Nazi propaganda. Yep, this is where we are in 2025, folks. We talked the other day about culture in this country. And of course, if a good-looking, blue-haired, blonde-haired girl who looks good does an ad and does the following, obviously it's, white supremacy, it's going back to the roots of evil of America, it's, Nazism, Hitlerism, all this stuff that's being said about her, specifically. And, of course, the nation. Talking about genetic superiority and things of the such. But, when Beyonce does it, it's totally fine. She did an ad a couple years ago. Oh, totally fine. She can sell jeans. It's fine. Anyone else could sell jeans, but not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. Can't do that. Not in America. And to show that, well, my God, it triggers everybody, doesn't it? You see people nonstop losing their minds over this, what was called Nazi dog whistles, white supremacist propaganda. This is all the rhetoric that they're saying about this simple ad selling jeans to people. Now, nowhere in the ad did it say you must look like Syndey Sweeney to buy these jeans and look good. Doesn't say that. But the return to allowing good-looking white women in these ads is troubling to the racist leftists of this nation, sadly enough. And, of course, there was a major meltdown, as you could imagine, from the left. They have no idea what to do about this. They're shocked to see things like this. Here's one example. We'll go through a couple of these. But this is some of the responses that you're seeing on things like X, on TikTok, or what have you, over a jeans ad, folks, where she says, I'm glad I have good genes. And, of course, they equate that with, Nazi propaganda, white supremacy, all this other nonsense, which it has nothing to do with. She's selling jeans, folks. Here's one great example. Take a listen.
Got me too. And I don't know why. Maybe because it's just so blatant. I keep thinking that people just are not gonna believe us until we're hung out there, but then even then I feel like they'll be like, oh no.
Okay, so now we're equating a jeans ad with hanging black people, is what this woman's asserting in this situation. Here's another genius out there in front of the poster in the store, and it says Syndey Sweeney has great genes, and it's spelled Jeans. Jeans, not Genes. But see, this is how they equate these things. These people that are lunatics. And again, I told you, if Beyonce does it, it's totally fine. If anyone else does it, of a different race that's non-white, it's totally fine. Great. But, in America, you can't have a good-looking blonde woman in a jeans commercial any longer. Here's another low IQ speaking about this at a store. Take a listen.
Don't forget to boycott American Eagle and cancel this person.
Cancel this person. Cancel Syndey Sweeney because she did a, 1 minute jeans ad? That she looks good in jeans? I mean, these people are so stupid. Here's a woke trauma surgeon continuing on again with this idiocy. But now this time it's xenophobic. Take a listen.
The Syndey Sweeney Aryan Eagle ad is not only xenophobic and racist, it's also scientifically inaccurate. She says genes often determine hair color and eye color. I'm sorry, often? That's literally what they do. If they're not determining hair color and eye color, what is? It's giving...
Okay, I can't listen to this idiocy any longer. Imagine going in for surgery with this woman. My God. They're going to have to run out of the hospital. So it's xenophobic, it's racist, right? To put her in this ad where she says, I have great genes, right? And the left is melting down over this, folks, as you could clearly imagine. So, we've got to go back to the Beyonce era where she's selling jeans only. Where a woman of color is selling jeans only. Because Syndey Sweeney has great genes, is very, heartbreaking to people that want to purchase jeans, of course. Now, of course, in reports published by the Washington Post, MS Nobody Cares, Salon, all these crappy magazines and whatnot, pundits and what have you, journalists, so-called, scrutinize whether the Euphoria star and fashion brand were taking digs at the body positivity movement. This is where they put obese women in a lot of these ads and what have you. Women of color, if you will. And, of course, subtly pushing whiteness and eugenics back into the culture. That's what they're talking about. This is what they're talking about over a jeans ad. I mean, this is where we are again in America. Because, again, you have a group of people, and I'll just say it as is, they hate white people. That's what it comes down to. Or you would just have low IQ women like the trauma surgeon. Again, equating it to having good genes. It's so pathetic. It really is. It's so these people shouldn't even be on social media. Really, it's stunning to me that people are this low IQ in this country. Buy some jeans if you want, folks. Don't buy some jeans if you don't want. You don't have to buy the jeans from American Eagle, right? You don't have to go there. You could buy it from wherever the hell else you want to buy it. But to accuse this woman of Nazi propaganda, Nazi dog whistles, white supremacy is absolutely... And then to cancel her. We need to cancel this actress now. Because we don't like that she did this ad. But it's okay, again, if somebody else that does it. That'd be fine. Just not a white woman. Anything else. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. But it doesn't shock me. It doesn't shock me in the slightest. You're going to see this more and more. You're going to see this pushback into many of these companies. Calvin Klein, American Eagle, Abercrombie, you name it. Gap. You're going to see this pushback if they put white people in these ads. And again, I don't say that to be divisive. I'm just saying that's how the left will approach this. And for the rest of us normal people, it'll just be simple advertising. Not a shock, folks. Not a shock, as one would imagine today in this age. Again, most of these Gen Zers who are, raised on social media, thinking that they have to look exactly like someone in an ad. I mean, it's just stupidity. Stupidity at its finest. Get some self-esteem, will you? For God's sakes. Zero Hedge has a good article. I like this article. It says, federal judge blocks Big Beautiful Bill's Medicaid cuts to Planned Parenthood. Oh. So now we have judges now enforcing the law, which again is, not constitutional in the slightest. But one could imagine why this would be when you have U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani. And yes, she is an Obama judge installed here. So another ideological judge. That's what we have here. Issuing a preliminary injunction blocking that section of the bill from being enforced, arguing in her order that the provision targeting Planned Parenthood is a form of punishment against the group and its members for providing abortions, aka murder in the womb. That's what it is. So unless you want to use taxpayer dollars to, again, fund murder, which I don't think we should be doing at all, this is obviously punishment. Interesting stuff here. So that provision of the bill, which was, again, backed by Republicans and signed into law by President Trump at the start of July, denied certain tax-exempt organizations, like Planned Parenthood, and their affiliates from receiving Medicaid funds if they continue to provide abortions. So that would obviously be Planned Parenthood, again, which filed a lawsuit. And, of course, this judge, this activist judge, granted this preliminary injunction that prevented the government from slashing these Medicaid funds to Planned Parenthood members that didn't provide abortion care or didn't meet the threshold of at least $800,000 in Medicaid reimbursements in a given year. This is where we are in this country, where we have the judiciary moving in, and they're trying to, again, push certain policies, push certain bills, prevent certain bills. We're cutting government spending in this aspect. And should you and I, that don't agree with it, I think most people listening would agree with me on this, that don't agree with this, should our taxpayer dollars go to this evil, evil act? I say no. I say no. And the judge, of course, she espouses the following. She says, patients are likely to suffer adverse health consequences where care is disruptive or unavailable. In particular, restraining members' ability to provide health care services threatens and increases in unintended pregnancies, and attendant complications because of reduced access to effective contraceptives, and increase in undisclosed and untreated STIs, that'd be sexually transmitted infections. Now, folks, the bulk of Planned Parenthood, they rarely provide other services than abortion. They rarely do. That's just the truth of the matter here. So this pro-abortion organization doesn't provide medical care. I mean, this is the truth of it. I mean, this is where we are. That's what their job is. And I'd say it's a poor way to Planned Parenthood, isn't it not? By murdering the offspring in utero. But again, they get ultrasounds and what have you. But I mean, they're not a healthcare provider, is what I'm saying to you. So this whole facade that women are not going to have access to this type of healthcare is completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. And again, if that's their services and that's where they're making a bulk of their money, then if they want that money, they should drop the abortion, right? No, they're not going to do that because that's where they get the bulk of their money from. So, again, I'm glad this obviously passed, and will we see this overturned? I would say it will be overturned. I don't think a judge can go through and, again, decide that, yes, American taxpayers have to fund murdered in utero. That's what it comes down to. And again, the president or chief executive, Alexis McGill Johnson, said that the organization will continue to fight this cruel law so that everyone can get birth control, STI testing, and treatment, cancer screenings, and other critical health care, no matter their insurance, as if women are going into Planned Parenthood for cancer screenings. Yeah, I don't think so, folks. I don't think so. Birth control, maybe. Healthcare screenings, I doubt it. But again, that's the facade they're pushing out. They're masquerading as this women's healthcare organization, which, again, I don't believe that it is. So we have to understand what's going on with these judges right now. And you're not just seeing it in this Planned Parenthood case. You're seeing it all the time. Trump wants to deport illegal aliens. You see a district judge trying to block this policy from being enforced. The job of the judiciary, understand this, the job of the judiciary is not to enforce laws. It is to interpret the laws. So notice she didn't point to any specific constitutional amendment or existing law. She just said simply, they can't do this. We're not going to allow this. You must do this. That's not the role of a judge. The role of a judge is to interpret the law. And of course, provided that it's going based on the Constitution as it ought be in its original form, then the executive, the legislature should be following suit with that. That's the way it should be. That's the rule. It comes down to what the Constitution says. And that's all I have to say on this topic. You can look more into this. It's in Zero Hedge. Again, it's a good thing to stop providing money and giving our taxpayer dollars to things we simply don't agree with, like murder, which is what this is. All right. I can't believe I have to say this to you now, but I have to transition to this Washington Examiner article right now. I can't believe I have to say I agree with Bernie Sanders. No, hell isn't freezing over on this July 30th. But it is Arnold Schwarzenegger's birthday, though, by the way. He's 78 years old today. I can't even believe it. You know, back in the day, watching all of his movies, of course, which are, most of them are fantastic, by the way. And of course, the inspiration and the fitness realm with his bodybuilding career and everything. And then he became the governor. I mean, the guy's been successful. You got to give him credit for that. He's extremely successful. And, I mean, I think everyone in the world probably knows who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. 78. Can you believe that? 78 years old. So it's remarkable. But on this day, Bernie Sanders has now condemned Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, for denying reports of starvation in Gaza since Israel's war against Hamas began. The Israeli foreign minister announced that as of Sunday, fighting would pause in civilian centers and humanitarian corridors to allow Palestinians the much-needed food supplies. Israel will allow airdrops of food as of Friday. So, I think last Friday. This is interesting to me. We see that Netanyahu came out and he said that there is no starvation in Gaza. It's a bold-faced lie. It rests solely on the UN. And he suggested that the UN says, no, we're not going to go in there because you're bombing them. And he said, no, we'll tell you where we're bombing. And you can go in there and set up your humanitarian aid. And all will be well again. Apparently. Now, denying the fact, of course, that at one point, I think it was like 3 months worth, they wouldn't allow any food or water or electricity in the region. You know, yesterday I played to you the physician from California that would volunteer and go into areas like Gaza to help people. And of course, it's unsanitary. There's no electricity. There's no anesthesia. The bulk of the people that are dying are young children. None are combatants, of course. None are Hamas, which should be the intended target there, of course. But I see people constantly saying, hey, there's no starvation at all in Gaza. None. Nothing whatsoever. But you have them specifically going out there and saying that, no, there's no aid that's going into this region. I mean, this is, again, they control everything that goes in and out of Gaza. Understand that. Understand that that's how it works. Israel controls that entire region. So, again, if food is not going in there, are they allowing food to go in there all the time? And again, if there's no starvation, what's the need for this humanitarian aid that they continue to boast about? And will people want to go in there if bombs are dropping every which way? We've seen how that ended up for those UN health workers, or volunteers rather, where 7 of them died. Now, that one was a little different. I don't think that was necessarily intended. But we know that they have AI drones, and we know that they can specifically target certain people with these drone missiles. And for example, let's say they know a Hamas target is in a certain area or region, for example. These things have a 1 to 100 kill ratio. So if the person is in a region where they detonate this bomb or missile, and it kills up to 100 people around them, then the fire is a go, in other words. So I think what was happening when we heard about that, the 7 volunteers that were trying to bring the aid into Gaza, they checked in with the IDF, and they went into the region, and then I'm getting hit with a missile because they were probably close to where this person was getting struck, even though they were calling out to the idea. It's a go. They can't stop it once it happens. So again, I don't think that was intended, but these people know that this could happen. This is what I'm trying to say to you. So we need to understand that aspect of all this. And I mean, Gaza's in ruins. I mean, you can just go look at pictures of it, and then you sit there and go, what's going on here? Where's the food being cultivated? Where is all this water? Where's the water supply? Where's the humanitarian aid, the water, the electricity, the medical supplies, the blankets? I mean, all this that we continue to see with our own eyes, anyone that wants to look. And then it's regarded as Hamas propaganda, of course. Despite the fact that we have now Israeli groups that are protesting this. This B'Tselem is one of them. I believe physicians for human rights in Israel are calling out this, what's going on now in Gaza. Now, Sanders went on to say, he said, Israel has a right to defend itself from the terrible Hamas attack. But I think everybody understands that in the last 2.5 years, they've been waging a brutal, horrific, and almost unprecedented type of war, not just against Hamas, but against the Palestinian people. Well, thanks, Bernie. Where the hell were you last year? We've seen this going on time and time again. We know there's over 400,000 people missing, well over 60,000 dead Palestinians, not Hamas, Palestinians, that had nothing to do with what happened on October 7th, that we all condemned. I condemned it. I'm sure most of you condemned it, as you should. Nothing like that should be happening to innocent people. But to now go back and say, no, this is fine because Hamas attacked us almost 2 years ago. It's okay to deprive people of water and food, electricity. So something's rotting in Denmark here, folks. Even President Donald Trump disagreed with Netanyahu after Netanyahu claimed it was a bold-faced lie that Palestinians are starving in Gaza. So you're seeing even President Trump now come out and saying, we've been giving humanitarian aid. Keir Starmer next to him said the exact same sentiments. But I want you to listen to, I think this is Ben Gvir, if I'm not mistaken. I forget this minister's name here. But take a listen to, it's being translated, I believe. I don't know if he's actually saying it. But this is what people in the Knesset are saying about what's happening in Palestine.
A moral bankruptcy that while our hostages are in Gaza, our Prime Minister is transferring humanitarian aid to Gaza. I think that at this stage, the only thing that should have been sent to Gaza is one thing: bombs. Bomb, conquer, encourage immigration, and win the war.
Okay, so let's go back and think about all this. We shouldn't be sending humanitarian aid into Gaza. We should be sending more bombs. We should be encouraging immigration. That's what he says at the end there. We should, at this stage, the only thing you should be sending to Gaza is bombs to conquer, to encourage immigration, and to win the war. We should send humanitarian aid, like food and water in there. This is being said by a member of the Knesset that works with Netanyahu. So it's not outrageous to think that they're not sending in this aid. And now Netanyahu's obviously going to deny this. Why would he acknowledge this? Why would he acknowledge that he's starving people? He wouldn't. Of course he wouldn't. They want to expel everybody from Gaza. I read to you yesterday. The heritage minister. Gaza will be Jewish. That's what he said. In other words, they will annex that territory. So the question you have to ask yourself, the listener, what's going to happen to the 1.9 or so million Palestinians in this Gaza Strip? Where are they going to go? There's only two things that can happen. They either leave willingly or they die in Gaza. That's the only thing. And as a result of that, folks, that's all, again, I have to say to you on this. I've talked to you about this ad nauseum. What's going on in Gaza. And that's why I read these articles to you, of course, because I want you to be aware of what's really happening in the world. But, I mean, you even have people like Bernie Sanders now, who's a communist lunatic, now admitting this. So he's not wrong that this is happening, but he funded all these operations. He funded everything that Joe Biden did. That gave, again, Netanyahu the means to carry out these attacks, as Donald Trump has. So we should, as good Americans, as patriots, as Christians, we should be condemning the starvation of people. We should be condemning the death, the unnecessary death of people. There's no reason to bomb the entirety of Gaza. Much of it lie in ruins right now. There's no reason for that. Unless, of course, you want to remove everybody from that region. This is not a good thing. And, the world is watching, folks. The world is watching. The world is seeing this. And you can deny, and call it Democrat propaganda. You can call it Hamas propaganda. But we see this on social media. We could see this. We saw the church that got bombed and killed 3 people. Why is a church being bombed? What, is Hamas going to mass? Why was the St. George Cemetery set ablaze in the West Bank? Nobody says anything about that. No one says anything about the Christians that live in Palestine, Gaza, if you will. No one says anything about that, do they? And then you see these other Christians, I believe in God, and then they turn a blind eye to this. No one excuses what Gaza did on October 7th. No one's even suggesting that they're stealing a bulk of the food that comes in. But again, how is Hamas, the UN's going in there, they're just giving it to Hamas, and then they just take it and go with it? That's in the video footage of them in trucks just, driving down the streets with the, pallets of food on them. But they said that they're bringing hundreds of tons of food into the region. If I'm not mistaken. They're taking, I think it was 92 tons of food. They're taking 92 tons of food for roughly 2 million people. And they're taking all of it? Really? Something doesn't make sense there, folks. Something doesn't make sense. And then you have the people that are, we constantly hear waiting in line for food, getting machine gunned. I mean, this is what's being reported out of Gaza. This is what's being reported to us. So, unless somebody comes and tells me otherwise, I'm going to report to you what is, again, being asserted. Not by the mainstream media. These are people in the region telling us what's going on. And you all should know about it, so that's why I'm telling you about it. Now, again, if I'm wrong, I'll apologize and I'll correct myself. But I haven't seen anything to the opposition of what I'm saying. So that's why I'm telling you all this. This is, again, important to understand. And understand that we need to stand up against stuff like this. Because this is not right, folks. This is not right at all. And this conflict should be over with. Again, there's supposed to be a ceasefire. Why are they dropping bombs in the region? That's another region. They're dropping bombs in Gaza right now. I thought they were supposed to be in a ceasefire. And wasn't it interesting? He says, because they have hostages. Well, last I knew, the IDF is holding currently 12,000 Palestinian hostages. Now, before the Israel invasion and the IDF entering Gaza, Hamas said, we'll give you all of the 250 or whatever the number was, 240, I forget exactly, hostages if you don't invade Gaza. Well, we know how that worked out, don't we, folks? So, yes, there's a lot more of the story than meets the eye a lot of times. But again, my goal in this situation is to give you what I'm seeing as the facts. What is happening? What is going on in the region? That's all I care about. That's all I care about right now. The truth matters. And on this show, I share with you the truth, not what I feel like sharing with you. And it pains me to say this. I mean, who wants to see, people starving? It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. Not to be undone, though, the Trump administration, while arming Ukraine, while arming Israel right now in their wars, Washington is now bringing instability to Russia and China, though, in Central Asia. So more nation building, as you could expect. So while the Russian and Chinese were asleep, Washington purchased the Armenian and Azerbaijan governments to the control of the Sunni region and the corridor in that area, which runs along the borders of Armenia and Azerbaijan with Iran. Why would they want to enter the Caucasus now? That's what you need to ask yourself. Now, according to a confidential memorandum obtained by a European newspaper, the Memorandum of Understanding the Creation of the Trump Bridge Transport Corridor, that's what they're saying it is, Washington has now gained control of the sensitive part of the world for 99 years. This is an RT. Paul Craig Roberts wrote about this as well. It says here that the RT reports that such an agreement would follow logically from the U.S.-Armenian Strategic Partnership Charter, and American contractors and advisors are already on the ground. It appears that the corridor now, this Silk Road here for transport, of course, will be now militarized. So now, if these reports are true, again, while Russia and Chinese intelligence or whatever political will, they have totally failed yet again. So Washington now has struck a deadly three-pronged attack against Russia, China, and Iran. Iran is now encircled from the north. You have the corridor now, right? That is, what's it called? The Sunni corridor? Yep. That now is going to be controlled. So this is going to definitely affect transportation. And, of course, formerly intended as part of China's Belt and Silk Road, if you will, it is now in the hands of Washington. So another part of the former province of the Soviet Union now have fallen under Washington's control. You see how we're moving into these regions. You see how these things are happening. And they're happening very, very fast. Paul Craig Roberts says that it wasn't long ago that Putin had to send Russian troops into Kazakhstan to prevent a Washington-inspired color revolution. That's what they love in D.C. They love these color revolutions, don't they? Overturning duly elected leaders and installing puppets. That's what we saw. We saw this happen in Ukraine with the Maidan Revolution. We saw how that turned out, didn't we? We saw the same thing happen in Georgia. Anti-Russian government was refusing to abide by the election and release its hold on power. So now Kazakhstan borders the Chinese majority Muslim province of Zhejiang, I believe is how you say that, where Washington is actively stirring up this province in western China. So it's clear now that Washington is now active in Central Asia, stirring up what it hopes will destabilize the Russian, Chinese governments, right? Keep turmoil in the region, and of course completely encircle Iran. So it's trying to hold these three main power sources, obviously Iran in the Middle East, you have China in the east, and of course you have Russia to the north. Again, all of whom share a similar alliance with one another. And again, as this development has been in the works for some time, these serious questions are raised about the competence now of all these governments. Why are they letting this happen so easily? Why are they letting America come in and hold land, militarize a region? So, while we saw the expansion of NATO greatly from its original 12 states now to, I believe it's, 33, 34, we're now putting our own missiles in Ukraine. We saw during the first Trump administration that the CIA was training Ukrainian troops to go to war with Russia. We saw this. We saw this happening. And we think that nothing's going to happen as a result of all this? I mean, to me, it's just unbelievable. So now what's going to happen in the majority Muslim province of Zhejiang? What's going to happen there? An uproar in western China? Destabilize the region? Move in and put our troops there? What's going to happen with all this? What's going to happen with this? And we as time goes on, we talk about peace. We want peace. I want peace. I'm sure you want peace. They don't want our troops all over the world in different military bases. I don't think. Some people do, of course. I want to see peace in these regions. I want to see trade in these regions. That's one of the things that struck me with this whole Iran thing. The president of Iran said, listen, we don't have a nuclear weapon. You check us again if you'd like. We want to impose trade with you in the United States. Wow, the CIA is not going to have that, folks. We need to have enemies out there. We need to have enemies. And we have to have a boogeyman. This is what the situation is. We have to have a boogeyman abroad to, again, keep the military, security, industrial complex moving. That's what we're seeing here. So Washington, again, is setting up shop to, again, create instability in this region. It's a ridiculousness. It's absolute ridiculousness that we're seeing this yet again. And by the way, where was Trump when the Azerbaijanis were in the Artsakh region, which is ethnically Armenian, and turning off electricity, harassing people? I think several people died. Where was he then when this was all going on? Where was Biden when this was all going on? Yeah, nowhere to be found. The only declared Christian nation in the world is Armenia, folks, in case anyone's unfamiliar with that. They have declared that as part of their government. They are a Christian nation. Now, of course, Armenia has denied this report. But the U.S. is now expanding its institutional presence now in Armenia. Now, that could be good for their defense. But, of course, it has this strategic partnership charter along with them in introducing borders and custom reforms, deepening security cooperation in the region. Is a quid pro quo for what, though? To, again, control this corridor from Russia to Iran to China? This is what the situation is all about. Now, Iran views this territory as the gateway to the Caucasus, right? They can, again, send their goods to the north, which is just north of them. That's where Azerbaijan and Armenia meet. Their southern borders meet Iran. Now, Russia considers it a buffering, protecting its regions and regional interest, obviously, with the Lesser Caucasus region, which is where Armenia and Georgia and Azerbaijan sit. And, of course, China has identified it as a possible node in the westward expansion of Belt and Road infrastructure. And, of course, the U.S. involvement in this space, even indirectly, would be interpreted by each of these powers as strategic provocation. So expect this to heat up, folks. Expect this to heat up sometime soon. Again, we want peace, and all we see is the proliferation of more war in the region. Never forget, Donald Trump ran as a peace candidate. He said, I will stop the war in Ukraine on day one. I expect the war between Israel and Gaza to be done before I even enter office. And he told Netanyahu to finish the job. I have no idea what that meant, but they said, okay, let's hope that this stops and we can move on. We can move on to peace. That's what we want. We don't want these endless wars. But that's where we seem to find ourselves in. So, in the future, when you hear something spring up in, Western China or Kazakhstan or in these Lesser Caucasus regions, understand that we were actively a part of that. Now, moving on, this isn't just the news. It says Supreme Court has to discuss Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal on September 29th. I don't believe this is happening. For the life of me, I cannot believe this is happening. I just want to scream reading this. That's what this article should be entitled. Not just the news. Just want to scream. Because this is ridiculousness. It says here that the Supreme Court will meet in private to discuss Ghislaine Maxwell's bid to overturn her sexual trafficking conviction on September 29th, as Fox News reported. So Maxwell has been arguing that she should have been immune from prosecution due to an agreement that Jeffrey Epstein, her former boyfriend, made with federal prosecutors before his death. So all of us, we all know that she's serving 20 years, of course. I looked into this case a little bit more. I said, we never found anything else about it. We knew the case was happening. We knew what the end result of this all was. But what was she actually charged with? That's what I wanted to know. And I saw the case as U.S. versus Maxwell, 2024. It says here that Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York for conspiracy to transport minors, that's plural, with intent to engage in a criminal sexual activity. Transportation of a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity. And sex trafficking of a minor. So she was given concurrent terms of imprisonment of 60 months, 120 months, and 240 months, respectively, following by concurrent terms of supervised release. Maxwell appealed her conviction on several grounds, including the applicability of Jeffrey Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. That's what she's trying to hope that she can get through on. And she's going to argue this till she's blue in the face, I imagine. But this is what's going on between these people. Conspiracy to transport minors with intent to engage in sexual criminal activity. With whom should be the next question. Where's the investigation of this? Why has nobody in the DOJ talked to any of these victims? That's what I want to know. Why is nobody setting up this investigation process to figure out what happened to these minors that are obviously going to be stated in this case, because we're talking about multiple people here. And again, if you build the case from their standpoint, who are you with? Who did you see? What happened? Who did this to you? Then you could build a real case. Then you could see the real Jeffrey Epstein client list. But it just shocks me. It really does. It shocks me that she's actually going to go up against the Supreme Court and, again, try to have this all appealed. It's ridiculous. And she's going to try to use the law to get herself out of this based on some deal that he made with the FBI. It says Maxwell served as the madam and primary procurer. Again, procure means getting somebody to do some type of sexual favor for somebody else. Now, that somebody else is Jeffrey Epstein or associates of Jeffrey Epstein, we need to know about this. This is why we've been talking about this. That's why this is so damn important. And of course, have any of these people associated with Jeffrey Epstein, have they been blackmailed in some way to meet some type of condition that's wanted by Epstein or by the people Epstein represents or what have you? If there's some type of blackmail ring going on here, we need to know about this and who these people are. Are they donors? Are they politicians? Who are they? But she has not ruled testifying before Congress. She wants to go before Congress with immunity to, I guess, describe all this. I doubt she would convict herself. I imagine, again, she would plead the fifth, of course. I can't see her going out there and admitting to guilt because she wants to get off on this. But she's going to use this agreement that Epstein used to get away from this and get pardoned. It says here that she's currently serving a prison sentence for sex trafficking, and the prospect of a Trump pardon has raised speculation. I mean, if she gets pardoned on this is absurd. This would be complete absurdity if she actually was given a pardon after all the heinous things that we've heard about, just Jeffrey Epstein in general. Just the fact that he, again, has a temple on the one that weirds me out the most is a temple on this island. And the torment that possibly happened with these underage women and these young women that took place on this island. I mean, this is absolutely appalling. And if she walks, then we know for sure there's absolutely no justice or protection for children in this nation. I want to move on to this article now in the Wall Street Journal. It says here that the U.S. economy rebounds in second quarter. Now, most of you are sitting there going, that's a good thing, right? Oh, yeah, of course it's a good thing. We want the economy to rebound and recover. It says here that the Commerce Department said that the U.S. GDP rose at a seasonally and inflation-adjusted 3% annual rate in the second quarter, which was up from a 0.05% contraction in the first quarter. They said that both quarters this year were heavily influenced by swings in trade. Think about the tariffs that Trump's putting in, as businesses tried to navigate tariff threats and trade deals from the White House, which again should be from the Congress, which I've said to you time and time again. U.S. Bank chief economist Beth Ann Bovino said that businesses are very cautious. They don't know the roadmap, so they're driving right in the right lane very, very slowly right now. And I said this to you before. I've said this many times, that businesses don't understand what's going on. They don't know, again, if China's going to be slapped with a 25% tariff or a 125% tariff or a 150% tariff. How is that going to affect their business? So they're hesitant now, especially with interest rates up, to really go out and invest, to make any future plans. They're kind of just going with the flow right now. So while we can champion that, GDP is up just a little bit in the second quarter, can we sit there and just clap our hands and say everything's all back to normal again? I don't think we can. And the reasons why, as I will tell you in just a moment, again, lie with this next article in Breitbart. Trump hits India with 25% tariff, which is a penalty for enabling Russia. Now, this is odd to me, again, because, again, India is part of the BRICS movement. That means they're moving away from using the petrodollar. And we saw the same thing happen with Brazil. They were going to throw tariffs on Brazil. And Brazil said, look, if you don't want to trade with us, we just simply won't trade with you if you're going to throw these tariffs on us. So people aren't buying into the threatening of these tariffs to do business in the United States. They just simply said they won't do it with us. Now, it's important to understand, too, as I mentioned before, that the BRICS nations, all the BRICS nations and all their counterparts, make up roughly about 43% of the GDP of the globe. Now, the United States only makes about 22 to 23% of that, which is a huge amount, no doubt. But the BRICS nations are not going to be penalized that much if they're not doing business with the United States. That's what I'm trying to tell you all. So this U.S. idea that they will levy a 25% tariff on India, which includes this penalty for buying military equipment and energy from Russia amid the war in Ukraine, is ridiculous to me in many regards. So what, we can send arms to Ukraine? They're in alliance with Russia. Why wouldn't they buy energy from them? Same thing why China wouldn't buy oil from Iran at a cheap price. Why wouldn't they? They're all in on it. They're in on it together. They're in alliance with each other. So it doesn't shock me that they're going to do this and work with each other and have diplomacy with each other. Listen, we cannot threaten our way into these positions, folks. It's just not going to work. It can work with some countries. It cannot work with some of these bigger powers. You're not going to bully China into all this. You can't make Truth Social posts and just say, here's our deal next. Let's see how they respond. I mean, we have to sit down with people. There has to be negotiations. There has to be diplomacy. And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that at all. And as I told you before, a 25% tariff is a 25% tax on you, the consumer. So we need to understand that. What does Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal have to say about all this? This is what I want to know. Because I think he sheds a lot of great light on what's happening in terms of what's happening in our economy, certainly, among many other issues. But he starts off by saying in his article posted earlier today, he says that go back to April 2nd, where President Trump announced his Liberation Day tariff war policy, threatening to impose skyrocketing tariffs on nations across the globe. The equity markets tanked, right? That's our first quarter. A few days later, he did a 180, promising to reverse the high tariff rates. Right? We all championed that again. As a result, the stock markets spiked to ongoing new highs. And of course, he made new tariff deals with major trading countries such as the UK, Japan, and now the EU. Right? Okay. Makes sense. They sat down, they agreed with it, even though that's Congress's job. Whatever. Right? They came to an agreement. Now, CNBC reported today that the U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who's always with Trump, by the way, said that President Trump's upcoming Friday deadline to impose major tariffs on a slew of trading partners won't be delayed any further, and that trade negotiations with China, the latest round of which are currently taking place in Stockholm, Sweden, are progressing on a separate timeline. So again, I ask you, why are they so, let's pause and think about this. Why are they so hesitant to slap a tariff on China right now? Because again, we're very dependent on what's happening with Chinese goods. We get a lot of our goods from China. Everything you buy now from abroad, made in China, made in China. So again, if we start slapping on a 125% tariff, that's going to cause inflation. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they don't want that to happen because they want the economy to go accordingly. They want to boom the economy, so they're not going to do that. So why are we threatening them with 125% tariffs? That's what I'm asking you. Now, Lutnick went on to say that we have our own team working with China. They're their own thing. But for the rest of the world, we're going to have things done by Friday, and that August 1st is the date that we're setting these rates, and then they are off to the races after that. So again, we have to look for these tariffs. Again, do they stick? Do they stay? Do they move? Do they go up? Do they go down? Nobody knows. Because it just seems on a daily basis, a weekly basis, anything can just change. As I said to you before, we're circumventing Congress now. So Trump can wake up one morning and say, hey, I want a 25% tariff. No, I want a 125% tariff. I mean, this throw things off, as the Wall Street Journal article just said. People are driving in the right-hand lane very, very slow. They don't know what's going to happen. It's not procedurally normal what's happening. So the trends forecast, what do they say? What do they think is going to happen right now? Take a listen to this. This is important. Crank up your volume. This is good. It says, again, love them, hate them, where the Trump tariffs deals go, so goes the equity markets. Should the street, and I'm assuming he means Wall Street, assess them as positive, the equity markets will continue to decline. Should they be seen by the street as negative for economic growth, and positive for inflation, equities, and the economy will decline. But again, there are numerous wild cards that will be played. Among them, the threat of the U.S. and Israel again attacking Iran. Think about the wars we have going on. The war in Ukraine escalating, right? Possibly with the attack of Kiev. Think about all the arms we're giving Ukraine now. Attacking deep into Russia. Blowing up oil depots. Refineries, pipelines. Remember Nord Stream 2? Remember that? Who do you think did that? And of course, the nuclear power. But all these things, in a geopolitical sense and trend, become a reality. And of course, the equity markets and the global economies will then crash. We have to understand something too. A lot of these economies in the EU, in Europe, they're in recessions right now. They're in recessions. And that's why you see the cost of Brent crude, price of oil, significantly lower. Not because we're drilling for more oil, as the world is, but because, again, they have to drop the prices so people can afford it. That's why you're seeing that. So while I wish I had some better news for you, Celente finishes off by saying an interest rate cut is not going to be the silver bullet to fix things today for the average American. But we forecast that there will be a silver bullet for a Wall Street and, of course, the merger and acquisition mob. The lower the interest rates fall, the higher the equity markets will rise. That's why Trump wants to do this, as he did back in 2018. He wants to do this again in 2025, because he wants to expand the economy. Yep, there we go. And of course, you'll see the markets go up. But as this happens, as you see the lowering of interest rates, what you're going to see is the dollar will fall deeper. It'll lose less purchasing power. But the price of gold is going to go up. That's what you're going to see as well. So keep all that in mind, folks. In terms of the economy, plan ahead. As I often tell you, time and time again. Last article of the day. Let's go to this. I love this in the Federalist. It says the pediatric medical establishment wants to force even more vaccines into your kids. And, of course, banning religious exemptions. Why not? Why would they want to do this? Of course. So, because there's no predictable way for schools or other involved community partners to distinguish fairly among religious or non-medical claims, says the American Academy of Pediatrics, they're treating them all as nonsense. Again, this is the country's repository for everything harmful in children's health. Came out on Monday saying that it recommends pumping children all 6 months of age and older. Right? And this is so stupid. Let's stop and think about this. At 6 months, the child doesn't even have an immune system. They're relying on the nutrients given to them from the mother primarily. Of course, coming in from the diet. They don't have their own immune system until they reach about the age of 3. And yet they want to continue to pump children. And you say, well, that's why they're getting vaccines. No. It has no effect on them because they have no immune system to build on. That's why the whole thing is so ridiculous. That's why it doesn't make any sense they give them a vitamin K shot moments after birth and a Hep B shot moments after birth. I mean, are we suggesting that the infant has a sexually transmitted infection? None of it's necessary. None of it's necessary. And by the way, if the mother's taking the proper prenatal, she doesn't need to give a vitamin K shot. Doesn't need it. It's ridiculous. Makes no sense. Scientifically, at all. But that's not going to stop these people who are hell-bent on pumping all children 6 months and older with more vaccines, and of course canceling religious exemptions for immunizations required by the school system. Oh yeah. Yeah, the school system. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of sense there. The AAP's policy statement comes at a time when the vaccination rates among children are dropping across the country in the wake of the corona vaccine debacle. And of course, the Department of Health and Human Services is finally set to do some research on the actual effects of the large number of vaccines given to children. Now, this is the exact same organization, understand this, that has insisted uncritically that mutilating and chemically castrating a child in the name of transgender ideology is the exact best way to treat a child who's confused about what sex they are. Of course, we refer to it as gender, even though it doesn't make any sense. Gender is just the language that's associated with that. It has no bearing on biology at all, because you can't change your biology, folks. As much as you'd like to, you can't do it. And the AAP, as it continues on by saying, has even gone as far as questioning the results of an evidence-based Health and Human Services review of the irreversible medical interventions. Referring again to this transgender surgery that they give, these beta blockers they give, the castration of young men, the, removal of the breast of young women. It's so ridiculous, folks. This is just backwards. So backwards. That's why I talked the other day about morality. Where do we get our morality from? Well, we get the morality from God. What did God say in the Bible? God created man and woman. He didn't create man, woman, and it, did he? So since they hate God, these people, these godless people, they want to destroy God's creation. They want to do that. And it goes into something even worse when you look at their sick and evil religious associations, some of these people, what they worship. I'm not going to get into that on the show. You can look that up on your own. But again, it's just not something that is stable. So true to form, though, this AAP would like state legislatures to bulldoze everyone's religious liberty, of course, and all non-medical vaccination exemptions across the country so they get more kickbacks up to the physicians that provide them. Oh, yeah. Take a look at that. What Blue Cross and Blue Shield gives to the people the physicians, rather, who inject all their patients with these toxic sludge vaccines, all of which have just toxic adjuvants in them. And again, we see this happen with pregnant women, 6 months old, being pumped full of this disgusting influenza vaccine regularly. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And, instead of going out there and building up your immune system, what is their response always? Their response is always, get another vaccine. Get another vaccine. If another vaccine will cure it, it'll be great. Yeah, pump your kid up with more vaccine, more, aluminum, more mercury. Hey, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Everything will be fine and honky-dory right afterwards. Folks, we need to stand our ground. We need to make sure we have our religious exemptions and, of course, our medical exemptions as well. So no one should be forced to take something they don't want to take in this country. That's my point of reading that article to you. We need to make sure we stand our ground. You all have rights. You only need to speak up. That's the way it works. Folks, I'll see you tomorrow on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good, stay busy. God bless you.